Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of Young Nails Nail School. All right, mastering acrylic nails, right? So the number one struggle with a lot of beginners is learning how to pick up the right consistency, right? So again, you can see that I have my dish filled with liquid. I'm working with Cover Pink, okay, which is one of the staple powders in our line. And I want to be able to show you that in order for you to get the right consistency, you have to be able to know how to go inside the powder really, really well. So if you submerge your brush, you don't want to do this. You don't want to pull off multiple sides. I recommend pressing one side, which is going to load the tip. And then what you want to be able to do is pull down in the powder and bounce. This is going to create a fluffy bead on one side of the brush. Now, here's the thing. When you are working with any type of surface that is like this, whether it's convex or you're going to be working on a form, right, which again is going to be convex, right, because when you're building a free edge, you're working on a convex surface. If you pick up a consistency, and I want to show you something, if you submerge your brush and you go into the powder, and let's assume that you don't bounce. Let's just assume that you get a lot of liquid and you just hold your brush inside. This is what could happen. Do you see how it falls back inside the powder? That's a big problem because you're assuming that the brush is going to absorb it and basically attach itself to the end of the brush. If this happens to you, leave it, let it dry, and then you could pick it out after. What you have to do is you have to pull down and then bounce. Okay, now here's the thing. If you just set it onto the form, look what ends up happening, right? That's a problem, right? You're never going to be able to control the powder if you go straight from here to here. So it doesn't matter whether you're working on a form or you're actually working on a tip. You have to be able to wait. So if I submerge my brush and I pull down and bounce inside the powder, I want to show you something different. Watch this. If I just wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then around 5, I release. Look at that consistency. You get what I call a beautiful self-leveling consistency where you'll be able to control. Look at this. If I'm touching it, nothing is getting out of control. You're able to control the run of the product. Okay, so how does that apply to actually doing nails? Well, when you're practicing, right, let's go ahead and get this bead out because it's now dry, right? So it's just a hard piece of acrylic, and that's what I recommend doing once you're done. But if you're practicing building nails, and it doesn't matter whether you're working on a practice hand, but you have to remember, right? So if I'm working on a nail, I want to be able to overlay the nail. If I'm working on a tip overlay, and what I mean by that, let's assume that you're working on a tip, right? So let's say you glue a tip on, right? You cut it, you shape it, you blend it, you have something. It's going to be the same as this, right? Let's assume this was the tip and we glued it on. You cut it, you blend it, you shaped it, and you have basically a flat surface to work off of. What we're trying to accomplish while we're doing nails is this. Like, let's assume that this is the natural nail, okay? So I draw this out. I have the natural nail. Let's say that you put a tip on, okay? So whether it's glued on or sculpt on, what we're trying to do is achieve this. We're trying to achieve a beautiful arch with a tight cuticle area. Tight cuticle area, enough support at the apex, and then again, enough support at the free edge so that when you file it into shape, if there's any excess, you're able to remove that to create, again, a structure that's going to be able to last. Here are the common mistakes a lot of beginners make when they're working with acrylic. First of all, they take their brush and what they do is they just, again, they bounce. And let's say you're like, oh, I don't want it to run. And what they do is they end up draining it. And what they do is they keep the finger too flat and then they end up pushing it here at the back. Take a look at this. Like, this is never going to work. What you've done is you've basically loaded up the whole cuticle area. You've basically created a mushroom head. Okay, so this is going to run into the skin. This is always going to cause a problem. You're never going to be able to get a perfect overlay. You're always going to be stuck with it too thick. What we have to be able to do is we have to keep the finger pointed down towards the towel. If the finger is flat, I'm going to show you guys something. If the finger is flat and then you go to overlay the nail, what ends up happening is the brush ends up at this angle, okay? So that's great, right? Because you have that tapered look. If we were looking at this, what we're trying to accomplish is that, right? A nice tapered look at the cuticle area. That's fine. But the problem is if the finger is flat, everything ends up running this way. So watch this. If you turn the finger down at an angle, first of all, the brush becomes flat, right? Just like this. I'm able to create that tapered look just like this, but I have full control of my brush where I'm able to use the tip of the brush and walk around the cuticle area, getting it tapered. You know, I like to compare this light, right? So this is my UV light that I cure products in all the time. Okay, but if you take a look at the contour of this light, right? You see how it contours back? Assuming the black end right here is a flat natural nail, we want our nails to taper this way, but notice from the sides, right? Everything tapers this way, everything tapers this way. We want it to be just like that here. So what we're going to do, okay, this is important. We're not only going to get a consistency that's going to run, right? Run, which is obviously another way of saying that it self-levels, but we have to have good balance. So if I hold my hand like this, notice the brush is attached, right, to the crease of my hand. I don't hold my hand. I don't do this. I don't slap it down and then just brush it forward. What I have to be able to do is I have to have contact. So if I have contact, and again from the side where my brush is flat, I'm able to walk around the perimeter of the nail while it's running down towards the tip, okay? So let's go ahead and get ourselves a nice bead. I'm gonna submerge our brush. I'm gonna lightly tap. I'm gonna pull down, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, at 4. I'm gonna release it. Watch this. I'm able to lightly touch around the perimeter of the nail. Like I could get it tight without having to force it. As the bead starts to move down towards the stress area, I could lightly start pulling the front of the bead down. Now here's the thing. If it starts to bulge off the sides, no problem. I could lightly pull. And I could use the self-leveling nature of the acrylic to create the proper overlay, the proper shape, the proper structure without it running this way. Now, here's the thing. If I'm looking at this, it looks a little offset. That's okay, because what we're gonna do now, right, I could clean my brush. I have good balance, I have good connection. I could use the body of my brush to just basically kind of walk some of the thickness back into play. As it starts to dry, what I could start to do is I could use the tip of my brush and start to kind of feather it forward. What I've left myself with is not only a perfect cuticle area, but I have the right structure. If you're looking at this from the side profile, you can see how everything basically contours to this shape. Don't make the mistake of building it too thick. This, again, for all of you guys that are in school learning to do nails, I always remember my instructor saying, Greg, you know what you should do? You need to take a small bead and then you need to apply it to the middle right here and just brush it forward. When you brush it forward, look at this. It jams the brush up and it clogs. You're just basically building this thick structure. If the product is too wet and you go onto the nail and you just pull it, look what happens. Pull, you jam in your brush. Pull, jamming, literally clogging your brush. What we have to do when we are working with acrylic is we have to trust the self-leveling nature of the acrylic. So again, follow me. Submerge your brush. Lightly tap. Watch this. I'm going to pull down, bounce, bounce, bounce. Look at how perfect that bead is. Let me show you guys up close. I'm going to submerge my brush. I'm going to lightly tap it. How much pressure? Let me show you guys again. I'm going to submerge my brush. I'm going to lightly tap, lightly tap. I've loaded the whole front end of the brush so that when I go into the surface, you have to use a little bit of force. Grip it. Watch this. Pull down into the surface, bounce, bounce, bounce. Now I'm going to show you something cool. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 5, I'm going to release. I'm going to use the tip of the brush. Lightly touch, lightly touch. If it starts to work off of the side, all you have to do is lightly touch the acrylic as it starts moving down. Once it starts moving, then what you could do is you could use the tip of the brush and lightly pull it over the exposed natural nail. Now here, look, that corner is starting to kind of run. All I'm going to do is use kind of the tip of the brush and kind of work it in. I'm going to get a flat end. I'm going to feather it, feather it, feather it. Look at how tight it ends up becoming here. I'm going to do the same thing on this opposite side. I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to hold the shape, right? As the acrylic is drying, you have to be able to trust, right, the self-leveling nature and the curability, right? So it takes about roughly 4 to 5 minutes for it to completely set, but you have about a minute for it to work. Okay, so how do you apply this to actually doing nails? Let me go ahead and get myself a nice tip. For those of you guys that are practicing out there, what you can do is before the acrylic actually sets, we can just use a wipe and we can just kind of clean it off this nail. And this is for practice only. You know, when you guys are working on any kind of natural nail as this, just remember it. Like if I was doing this nail, like what size? And again, right? If I was working on my own hand, what would I do? Well, again, you know, I need to hold it at an angle. So if I have the product, and again, I tap my brush on one side, boom, boom. What I'm going to do is use the tip of the brush. I need to bounce just a couple times. I'm going to wait. 1, 2, 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it down and then I'm going to use a really light motion as I'm trying to hold the product down at an angle. So you can see that I've got this really, really kind of tight, basically cuticle area. I don't want to just brush it forward. I want to brush the front end as I'm lightly kind of feathering everything down over the tip. I don't want it to run over the cuticle area, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of guiding it. This is a great way of just practicing so that you can learn how to get this area super tight. This is going to lead to you not having to spend 30 to 40 minutes filing around the perimeter of the nail. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and do something so that you guys can see how this all works. I'm going to go ahead and clip off the end of the tip. Okay, let's just go ahead and remove this. For those of you guys that are practicing, I'm just going to kind of file around the edges just to kind of shape it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use my electric file and we're going to do a quick prep. All right, do I have it? Jorge, do me a favor. Can you grab me the cord? He's going to grab me the cord. For those of you guys that don't have an electric file, I'm going to show you guys a trick. For those of you guys that have no choice but you have to prep, if you're using a hand file, this method of prepping does not work. If you have a hand file, you have to lightly go around the cuticle area, gently, all the way around, then use the body of the hand file to lightly tickle away the surface, right? And again, the amount of pressure I'm gonna be using, if I was working on the inside of my wrist, again, I'm tickling. I don't want, this is again, very tender spot. I need to make sure that when I'm removing shine from the surface, I'm tickling this away. If I was using an electric file, I'm going to be working at 3,000 RPMs. You'll notice the speed of my electric file is very gentle. If I held it, it would stop, right? It would stop. Well, again, if I'm just lightly cruising around this area, it's not going to create enough friction for anyone to feel any sort of thermal reaction or heat. Okay, so check this out. Tickle, 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 tickle. I could use a tickling motion to feather away the shine. Once I'm done feathering away the shine, then I'm gonna go ahead and use a wipe. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna clean that off. I'm now going to use Protein Bond. And then what we're gonna end up doing is applying a nice coat. You guys get ready. We are going to have the biggest sale of the year. Black Friday is going to start November 20th. This is going to be mega. There's going to be some crazy, there's over 20 new products. I'll just give you guys a preview while I'm actually doing this. So I just showed these off today. I'm really excited about this. So, I mean, dude, these are the new stripers, right? These are going to be insane, right? So not only are you going to be able to work with this gel, but the line art that you're going to be able to create with these are going to be absolutely perfect. They're going to be able to do some sick art. We have so many new videos that we're going to be launching. There's a lot of crazy things that we have coming on Black Friday. There's 3 mystery boxes. Again, just wanted to give you guys a preview of the new gel stripers, the striping gels that are coming. It's going to be epic. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a form, okay? We're gonna take a nail form. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna place it right here. Okay, so for those of you guys that struggle with a nail form, what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna pinch the front end. Check this out, I have a handle, okay? Now, I'm gonna open this up. Okay, so what we need to do when we're applying forms, I need to make sure that I'm getting it absolutely flush to the front end of the nail. Do not worry about the corners. So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna make sure, again, look at this, attach, I'm gonna use my hand, I'm gonna tilt it up until it's absolutely flat. Once it's absolutely flat, you're gonna be able to look at the side profile. Look at how straight that form is. That is what we need to do in order for us, again, to build something absolutely straight coming off the end of the growth channel. We need to make sure that it's coming off the growth channel, flush to the nail, like we glued a tip on and blent it flush, and blended it flush to the natural nail, blent. It's a new word. All right, so I'm gonna use my brush. I'm gonna tap. I'm going to pull down, bounce, bounce, bounce. Now watch this. I don't want it to run in the form. So if I take off excess liquid, it turns matte. I'm now going to be able to set it to the very, very front. It's going to stay like clay. From the top of the bead, I'm gonna walk it. I'm gonna get it even with the growth channel. From the top of the bead, I'm gonna walk it. I'm gonna get it even. Look at that. I was able to tuck it. I'm gonna go back over the top. You see that run? Get it even with the growth channel, walk it from the top. Even with the growth channel, walk it from the top. Tuck it. Perfectly straight. Now, I walk back over the top, and at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that I have a really straight, and what I mean by straight, like my growth channels. If you're looking at it from the top perspective. What I'm trying to shape, I'm trying to make sure that it stays within the line. That ledge, I need to make sure that it's completely rounded off. I can brush it too. If I wanted to brush this forward to actually create something perfectly straight, you can see that I can build, say, a beautiful kind of coffin shape if I chose to work. This is what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to keep it within the growth channel. Okay, so now, once we actually have this built out, I'm just gonna make it a little bit thinner here at the tip. We're gonna do the same thing we did at the cuticle area. I'm gonna submerge my brush. I'm going to lightly tap it. I'm gonna make sure that divot is removed. Again, submerge your brush, lightly tap. I'm going to pull, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, at 4, I'm going to end up releasing it. I have enough space around the cuticle area for me to lightly touch around the perimeter of the nail. As it starts to move, I'm gonna hold the sides, and then from the corners, I'm gonna pull. From the corner, I'm gonna pull. Notice here, right? If I slide my brush up to hold it, I'm gonna pull from the front. Everything levels perfect. All I have to do is hold the shape within the tip, then guide it over the front end. Notice contact to my finger as I am holding the shape of the acrylic. I'm going to lightly guide all the way through. And as you can see, I'm able to pull. Look at the side profile. I'm able to get something that has, again, a great upper arch. Okay, so if I needed to move product back, I could always, again, clean my brush, get it flat. I could use the body of the brush and kind of work some of that thickness back towards the stress area as I'm working some of that excess acrylic down over the tip. I need to be able to build that beautiful upper arch. So for that missing space at the front, what are we gonna do? We're going to submerge our brush. We're going to come in. We're going to lightly pull. At this point, if I choose to remove excess, I can because I'm working on top of acrylic. In between that bead and the negative space, right, look at this. I'm gonna pull back to blend it. Now, with the body of my brush, I'm going to walk from side to side up into the corner. I'm gonna walk from side to side up into this little corner right here. And that excess, I'm gonna be able to work all the way down to the front of the nail until all that negative space is basically filled in. If I choose to blend backwards to make sure it's even, I can do that. But as you can see, I'm able to build a beautiful structure that's going to be super easy to file, right? Super easy to file. I have great thickness all the way through. Look at my lower arch. The lower arch is basically this point. It is perfectly straight coming off. Everything coming off the end of the growth channel is going to be perfectly straight onto the nail form. This is what's going to help you achieve absolute perfection. If your form is on straight, if you have the right consistency, if you know how to apply it with the finger pointed down, if you have the right balance, there's so many keys. There's keys of fundamental work that is going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to building acrylic nails, right? And so at this point, there's a lot of things that can happen. Let's say you choose, right, to do some impression work. And what I mean by impression work, as that is drying, we need to poke, right, something into the surface, right? So you're going to notice, I'll show you. I was looking for a brush cover, but see, at this point here, if you were to take anything, right? Like, actually, let's just use a tip, right? I'm sure you guys have seen some of this work, right? But if I was to take the back end of a tip and I was to actually, say, cut it here, right? And then actually force the separation of the acrylic, boom, from the surface. So you can see how I've actually removed a lot of the acrylic from the surface. Dude, look at that. This is a great way for you to be able to actually come in, right? And once that dries, what I can end up doing is just lightly kind of file out my edges right here. And then if I decided that I wanted to put a different color in, I'd be able to press it in right up to that really, really sharp line and create something absolutely amazing. There's so much you can do when you're actually doing sculptured nails that's gonna separate your work from everybody else. All right, so again, Black Friday, starting November 20th. We have 3 mystery boxes that are launching. We're gonna have a large, which is basically $500 worth of product for $100. We have a medium, which is about $150 worth of product for $50. And then we have the small, which is close to $100 worth of product for $30. This is the only time. And site-wide, excluding the boxes, right, for all the miscellaneous products with bulk and everything, you guys are gonna be able to get up to 35%. For those of you guys who want, right, 30% site-wide, for those of you guys that want that additional 5%, make sure you get that phone number. That way, before the sale, you're gonna be able to get that discount code for additional 5% off. It's gonna be epic. Really looking forward to it. If you guys have any questions, hit me up, DM me on Instagram, gmansalo. For those of you guys that need more information, www.youngnails.com or call 1-800-777-9170. Appreciate you much. You'll be seeing me more in more episodes of Nail School, and looking forward to teaching you guys how to crush nail designs as well as techniques that are going to help you guys get better in the salon. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Subscribe channel now. Subscribe channel now. Subscribe to channel.